On a bustling street corner, the desperate cry of a mother's voice rang out, cutting through the noise of the city. She was singing with all her soul, hoping to gather funds for her sick son's treatment. Her little boy, frail and exhausted, lay cradled in her arms as she poured every ounce of emotion into her performance. What she didn't know, though, was that Snoop Dogg had pulled over in his iconic pink Cadillac, captivated by her voice. And in that moment, his presence was about to shift everything. The sterile atmosphere of the children's hospital felt heavy as Amanda Taylor sat anxiously in a brightly lit consultation room. Her 3-year-old son, Liam, sat quietly on her lap. The white walls, covered with cheerful animal decals, seemed to mock the grim weight of the moment. Liam, blissfully unaware of the tension thick in the room, played softly with his well-loved teddy bear, its worn fur speaking of countless nights spent as his comfort. Across from them sat Dr. Evelyn Carter, a seasoned pediatric oncologist with a warm demeanor and streaks of gray in her hair. Her desk was strewn with scan images and medical charts, pieces of the puzzle that painted a grim picture of Liam's condition. As the doctor began to speak, her voice carried a mix of professional steadiness and heartfelt empathy. "Amanda," Dr. Carter began, her kind eyes locking with Amanda's. "I'm sorry to tell you that Liam's latest test results confirm our worst fears. He has stage 4 neuroblastoma." Amanda's arms instinctively tightened around Liam. Her heart thundered in her chest as she tried to absorb the crushing words. "Stage 4, she echoed faintly, her voice barely more than a whisper. Dr. Carter nodded gravely. "Yes, the cancer has spread from his adrenal gland to part of his left kidney." She reached for one of the scans, holding it up toward the light. "Here," she said, gesturing at different areas of the grainy image. "You can see the extent of the progression." Amanda leaned in, her eyes searching the black and white shadows on the scan. To her, it was an incomprehensible blur of shapes. But to Dr. Carter, it was a stark, undeniable map of Liam's battle. What does this mean for him?" Amanda's voice shook as she spoke. "How long?" She couldn't bring herself to complete the question. Setting the scan back on the desk, Dr. Carter softened her tone. "Amanda, I want to be as transparent as I can. Without aggressive treatment, Liam may only have 6 months, maybe up to a year." The words landed like a physical blow. Amanda instinctively held Liam closer, as though her embrace could somehow protect him from the weight of reality. The little boy, noticing his mother's unease, gazed up at her with innocent, questioning eyes. "Mama," he said softly, his tiny voice breaking the oppressive silence that hung in the room. Amanda managed a trembling smile, gently stroking Liam's bald head. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered, though her heart felt anything but okay. Dr. Carter leaned in slightly, her voice shifting to a more encouraging tone. "But I want you to know," she said, "that with the right treatment, including surgery and immunotherapy, many children achieve remission or extended survival. In recent years, we've seen incredible advances with these therapies." Amanda grasped onto this flicker of hope. "And the treatment? When can we start?" she asked, her voice trembling but resolute. Dr. Carter's expression changed subtly, concern softening her features. "Amanda," she began gently, "we've been having these discussions for some time now. I need to ask, what's holding you back from moving forward with Liam's treatment?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unavoidable. Amanda's fragile composure, which she had fought so hard to keep intact, began to crumble. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she struggled to explain. "It's our insurance," she admitted, her voice choked with emotion. "It only covers basic chemotherapy, consultations, and tests. The surgery, the immunotherapy. We just can't afford it. I can't afford it." Her late husband's absence weighed on her like a physical presence. If he was still alive, maybe, just maybe, they could have managed. But as a single mother juggling multiple jobs to keep a roof over their heads, the staggering costs of advanced cancer treatment loomed like an insurmountable wall. Dr. Carter's eyes reflected deep understanding and compassion. "I see," she said softly. "I'm so sorry, Amanda. I know how overwhelming this must be for you." She paused for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "We'll continue with the basic chemotherapy for now to give Liam the best possible chance under these circumstances. And I promise, we'll explore every possible option to help him." Amanda nodded, grateful for the doctor's kindness, though the weight of helplessness still pressed down on her. As the consultation came to an end, Dr. Carter stood and walked around her desk, gently placing a reassuring hand on Amanda's shoulder. "We're not giving up, Amanda. Liam's a fighter, and so are we. We'll stand with you every step of the way." Tears streamed down Amanda's face as she looked up at the doctor. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Leaving the consultation room, Amanda held tightly onto Liam's hand. His small frame felt more delicate than ever. The colorful animal decals on the walls blurred together as she passed them, a kaleidoscope of false cheer in a world that had grown unbearably heavy and uncertain. The hospital's bright, sterile lights gave way to the warmer glow of the billing counter. Amanda, still holding Liam, approached the desk. A middle-aged clerk with a kind face greeted her warmly. "Hello, Mrs. Taylor," she said, recognizing them from their frequent visits. "How can I assist you today?" Adjusting Liam on her hip, Amanda freed one hand to reach into her bag. "I need to settle today's bill," she said, her voice still raw from the emotional weight of the consultation. The clerk nodded and turned to her computer, her fingers flying over the keys as she brought up the day's charges. After a brief pause, she looked back at Amanda. "The total for today's consultation, imaging, and chemotherapy session is $500. Amanda's stomach sank. She had braced herself for this, but the number still hit hard. Wordlessly, she handed over her insurance card, silently praying there wouldn't be any complications with the coverage. The clerk processed the card, her eyes scanning the screen. The seconds stretched into what felt like hours for Amanda. Finally, the clerk smiled warmly. "Good news, Mrs. Taylor. Today's treatment is fully covered by your insurance." A small wave of relief washed over Amanda, bringing with it a glimmer of hope, however fleeting. But even with the small relief of today's treatment being covered, Amanda couldn't shake the heavy burden of their reality. She knew this basic insurance, while helpful in the short term, fell heartbreakingly short of what Liam truly needed. "Thank you," she murmured, managing a faint smile as she retrieved her insurance card. As they left the billing counter, the weight of their financial struggles bore down on her with renewed force. The fleeting comfort of having today's bill taken care of was eclipsed by the overwhelming knowledge that the life-saving treatments Liam required were still far beyond their reach. Stepping through the hospital's sliding doors and into the parking lot, Amanda was met with the bright, relentless glare of the afternoon sun, a stark contrast to the cool, sterile air inside. She walked slowly with Liam toward their old, battered van. Its peeling paint and rusted spots told the story of years of service and bare-minimum upkeep. Opening the van's side door, Amanda gently placed Liam in his car seat. The seat, a second-hand find salvaged after their original was damaged in a minor accident, was far from ideal. The broken seatbelt had been patched together with a makeshift strap, a temporary fix that lingered far too long due to more urgent expenses. As she secured Liam with the improvised strap, a pang of guilt coursed through her. She knew the setup wasn't safe, but it was all she could afford right now. It was yet another reminder of the sacrifices and compromises she had to make just to keep going. Closing the door, Amanda climbed into the driver's seat. The doctor's words echoed relentlessly in her mind. The treatments they couldn't afford, the dwindling time they had left. Her fingers tightened on the steering wheel, her knuckles turning pale as she fought back another wave of tears. The engine sputtered to life after a few attempts, its worn-out sound a reflection of their battered existence. Amanda pulled out of the parking lot, navigating the city streets with a mind racing full of thoughts and fears. She mentally tallied the small amount of money she'd saved from her street performances. It was barely a drop in the ocean compared to the astronomical costs of Liam's treatment. Her heart pounded with determination. There had to be a way, somewhere in this city, to save her son. She just had to find it. From the back seat, Liam's small, soft voice broke through her storm of thoughts. "Mama, sing." Amanda glanced at him in the rearview mirror, meeting his innocent, hopeful eyes. Despite everything, she managed to smile. "Of course, sweetie. What song do you want?" "Twinkle Star," Liam replied, his face lighting up with a rare spark of joy. And so, as they made their way through the bustling city streets, Amanda's voice filled the old van with a soothing melody of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. For Liam, it was a simple moment of comfort. For Amanda, it was a silent vow, to find a way, no matter what it took, to give him the treatment he deserved. The song may have been about stars in the sky, but to Amanda, it was a reminder of her unshakable determination to keep fighting for her son. For Amanda, Liam wasn't just her son. He was her entire universe. She would stop at nothing, move mountains, or cross the stars if that's what it took to keep his light alive. The van came to a stop along a moderately busy shopping street on a quiet Monday afternoon. Parking in her usual spot, Amanda noted how different the atmosphere felt, much calmer than the weekend's bustling activity. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself for what lay ahead. "All right, Liam," she said, turning to face her son in the back seat. "Mommy's going to sing for a while. You can nap if you're tired or look at your book, okay?" Liam nodded, already reaching for his well-worn picture book, his faithful companion during these long sessions. At the same time, he let out a big yawn, his little body fighting off the fatigue. Amanda smiled at him, her heart swelling with equal parts love and resolve. She stepped out of the van and moved to the back, opening the doors to reveal her modest setup: a weathered microphone, a small battery-powered speaker that bore the marks of countless repairs, and a single cardboard sign that read "Help my son." Normally, Amanda would have displayed more signs chronicling Liam's journey, but a sudden summer downpour days earlier had ruined them. She hadn't had the chance to make new ones yet. With practiced efficiency, she began setting up her makeshift stage on the sidewalk. The concrete, warm under the summer sun, radiated heat as she carefully arranged her equipment, ensuring there was still space for pedestrians to pass by. Every so often, Amanda glanced back at the van, parked just a few steps away. Through the window, she could see Liam's small, fragile form. His eyelids were already drooping as he settled in for a nap, his innocence a stark reminder of the urgency driving her actions. As she worked, Amanda's mind drifted. She thought about the many days and nights she'd stood here, pouring her soul into her performances, the kind strangers who stopped to listen, the rare, harsh comments from those who judged without understanding, the slow trickle of donations that, while appreciated, still felt painfully inadequate. Everything was ready. Amanda took her place behind the microphone, battling the nagging doubts that had started creeping in. She knew the truth. What she'd managed to collect so far, while substantial, was nowhere near enough. Even if it were, it would likely come too late. Still, Amanda clung fiercely to hope, convincing herself that standing here, singing her heart out, was far better than sitting idle in their worn-down home, helplessly watching time slip away. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Amanda began to sing. Her voice carried over the street, filled with raw emotion, a mixture of hope and desperation in every note. The first song was one she knew by heart, a popular ballad that often stopped people in their tracks. True to form, some passers-by slowed, intrigued, their faces softening with curiosity or sympathy. Others, hurried or indifferent, walked by without so much as a glance. Here and there, though, people paused to approach her donation box, dropping in coins or small bills. Amanda kept singing, her voice unwavering even as she watched the modest contributions pile up. Every coin, every dollar felt like a lifeline, however small, a tiny step closer to the treatment Liam so desperately needed. In Amanda's heart, she knew all too well that what she was doing wasn't enough. The pressing urgency of Liam's condition loomed over her, making each song feel simultaneously like a lifeline and a reminder of the impossibility of their situation. As she finished her first set of songs, Amanda paused, taking a moment to catch her breath. She glanced at the collection box beside her microphone and quickly estimated the day's earnings. It wasn't much, but it was something. Turning her gaze back to the van, she saw Liam stirring from his nap, his sleepy eyes peering curiously out the window. Amanda walked over, her heart tugging at the sight of him. "Hey, sweetie," she said softly, opening the van door. "Are you hungry?" Liam nodded, reaching his small arms out to her. She lifted him gently, feeling again the sharp pang of worry at how light he had become. Reaching into the front seat, Amanda retrieved his lunchbox, a modest container holding a simple sandwich of plain bread. The sight of it made her heart ache with guilt. "I'm sorry it's not much, Liam," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Mommy promises to get you something better later, okay?" Liam didn't seem to mind. He took the sandwich eagerly, munching on it with the innocence only a child could maintain. Amanda watched him eat, silently vowing to herself to make sure his next meal was more nutritious, no matter what. After handing him his sippy cup of milk, Amanda took a moment to count the donations she'd received so far. She sorted the coins and bills quickly, her heart sinking as she tallied just $43. For an hour's work, it wasn't bad, but compared to the mountain of medical bills they faced, it felt like a drop in the ocean. As Liam finished his sandwich, he looked up at Amanda with his trusting eyes. "Mama up," he said, reaching out his small arms. Amanda smiled despite herself. "Of course, sweetheart," she replied, scooping him up and holding him close. With Liam nestled in her arms, Amanda returned to the microphone. A wave of emotion surged through her as she thought of the perfect song for this moment. Taking a deep breath, she began to sing Clouds by Zach Sobich, her voice resonating with the raw emotion of a parent fighting for their child's life. The lyrics, "And we'll go up, 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 but I'll fly a little higher," carried across the street, stopping shoppers in their tracks. Even passing cars slowed down, windows rolling down to catch the haunting melody. Halfway through the song, Amanda noticed a sleek pink Cadillac crawling along the street. Its driver seemed to be watching her intently. The car pulled over to the curb just behind her van, but Amanda stayed focused on her performance, assuming it was just another passerby captivated by the music. As the final notes of the song hung in the air, the small crowd that had gathered broke into applause. People approached, dropping money into her collection box, some even offering words of encouragement. Amanda smiled and thanked them warmly, her heart buoyed by their kindness. As the crowd began to disperse, Amanda noticed movement from the pink Cadillac. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. Dressed sharply in a blue shirt and blazer, his commanding presence caught her attention immediately. Her breath caught in her throat as recognition set in. Standing just a few feet away was none other than Snoop Dogg. The rapper removed his sunglasses, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. His typically laid-back demeanor was replaced by a seriousness that spoke volumes. "That was beautiful," he said, his voice low and thick with emotion. "That song, it means a lot to me. Reminds me of someone close I lost to cancer. Amanda stood frozen, Liam still in her arms, too stunned to respond. Snoop's gaze shifted to Liam, taking in the boy's frail appearance and bald head. Understanding dawned in his eyes as he recognized the signs of chemotherapy. "Your son?" he asked gently. Amanda found her voice, nodding. "Yes. This is Liam." Snoop smiled warmly at the boy. "Hey there, little man," he said, his tone softening. Then, turning back to Amanda, he asked, "Mind if we talk for a bit?" Still reeling from the surreal turn of events, Amanda nodded. "Of course," she managed to say, her voice shaky. Snoop patted his pockets, a look of mild frustration crossing his face. "Hold on a sec," he said. "I think I left my checkbook in the car." As he turned back to his Cadillac, a sharp, accusatory voice pierced the moment. "You need to stop faking your son's illness to gain sympathy." Amanda spun around, clutching Liam protectively. A woman pushed through the onlookers, her face twisted with anger and disdain. "Let him grow some hair, and we'll all know he's fine and healthy," the woman sneered, her voice dripping with mockery. "Your voice isn't even that good. Get out of the way. You're obstructing the walkway." The cruel words echoed off the buildings, drawing uneasy stares from the remaining passers-by. Amanda's cheeks flushed with a mixture of anger and humiliation. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Snoop, who had paused at the commotion, turned back. His laid-back demeanor hardened, his eyes narrowing as he approached the confrontation. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low but steely, cutting through the tension like a knife. Amanda took another deep breath, willing herself to continue as the weight of her reality pressed down on her. Snoop's compassionate gaze remained steady, giving her the strength to push through. "I've tried everything I can think of to get help," she said, her voice trembling. "I even sold most of what we owned to cover some of the treatments. But even with all that, we're nowhere near what we need for the life-saving procedures and medicines that could give Liam a chance." Snoop's jaw tightened, his usually relaxed demeanor replaced by a seriousness that reflected the gravity of the situation. "And that's why you're out here singing?" he asked softly, glancing at her modest setup. Amanda nodded. "It's the only way I know how to raise money right now. I don't have a fancy education or a well-paying job, but I have my voice, and I thought maybe that could be enough to make a difference." Her eyes dropped to Liam, who was now resting his head on her shoulder, his small hand clutching her shirt. The sight of him so peaceful yet so fragile brought fresh tears to her eyes. Snoop took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving Amanda and Liam. "You're doing something incredible," he said finally, "and brave. Most people wouldn't even have the courage to try." Amanda blinked back tears, the weight of his words surprising her. "It doesn't feel brave," she admitted. "It feels desperate. But I have to keep going. For him." For a moment, Snoop was silent, his mind clearly working through something. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and deliberate. "Amanda, I want to help. I know you don't know me, and you probably didn't expect to be having this conversation today, but I can't just walk away from this." Amanda's breath caught, and she stared at him, unsure if she'd heard correctly. "Help," she echoed. Snoop nodded. "I know people who can make a difference, people who can donate, organize fundraisers, spread the word. And I'll pitch in too. Financially, I mean. Let's make sure Liam gets the care he needs." The world seemed to tilt around Amanda as she tried to process his words. She clutched Liam tighter, her heart pounding in her chest. You would do that? For us?" Snoop smiled, his signature warmth returning to his expression. "Absolutely. Everyone deserves a fair shot, especially little guys like Liam. And like I said, Your voice is something special. It brought me here, didn't it?" Amanda laughed shakily, overwhelmed by the sudden shift in her fortunes. "I don't even know what to say," she whispered. "Thank you doesn't seem like enough." "You don't have to say anything," Snoop replied. "Just keep singing. Keep doing what you're doing. And let's get Liam the help he needs." As the weight of months of fear and uncertainty began to lift, Amanda felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time: hope. With Liam still dozing in her arms, she smiled through her tears. For the first time in what felt like forever, she believed things might actually get better. Snoop held up his hand again, shaking his head with a small, understanding smile. "You didn't ruin anything, Amanda," he said calmly. "I tore it because this situation doesn't need a check. It needs something bigger." Amanda blinked, confusion etched on her face. "Bigger?" Snoop nodded, tucking the remnants of the check back into his pocket. "Writing you a check would help, sure, but it wouldn't be enough to cover everything Liam needs. Not in the long run. What you and Liam need is a network, a campaign. Something that gets the right people involved to make a real difference." He stepped closer, lowering his voice as he continued. "Here's what I'm thinking. We set up a fundraiser. Not just some little thing. I'm talking about a real event. We'll get the word out through my contacts, use social media, and involve some big names. We'll make sure people hear your story, Amanda. And when they do, trust me, they'll want to help." Amanda stared at him, her breath catching in her throat. It sounded too good to be true. "You'd do that? You'd organize something like that for us?" Snoop smiled warmly. "Of course. I told you, I can't just walk away from this. Your love for your son is inspiring. And if I can use my platform to give Liam a fighting chance, then that's what I'm gonna do." Overwhelmed, Amanda felt tears streaming down her face, but this time they were tears of gratitude and relief. "Thank you," she whispered, clutching Liam closer to her chest. "I don't even know how to thank you enough." "You already have," Snoop replied, his voice soft. "Your strength and your story are all the thanks I need. Now, let's get to work. I'll have my team reach out to you so we can start planning." Amanda nodded, unable to speak as the enormity of what he was offering began to sink in. For the first time in months, the crushing weight of hopelessness lifted just a little. As Snoop extended his hand to shake hers, Amanda grasped it firmly, her voice trembling but resolute. "I promise I'll do everything I can to help make this happen. For Liam." Snoop grinned. "I wouldn't expect anything less." In that moment, standing in the warmth of the summer sun with her son in her arms and hope finally within reach, Amanda felt a glimmer of something she thought she'd lost: faith in the kindness of others. Together, they were going to move mountains. "Yes," Amanda said softly, adjusting the microphone with one hand while holding Liam in the other. She set him gently back in the van, ensuring he was comfortable before turning back to Snoop. Snoop gave her an encouraging nod. "Just sing your heart out, Amanda. Don't worry about anything else right now. I've got this." Amanda took a deep breath, the weight of hope and uncertainty mingling in her chest. She picked up her microphone and began singing again, pouring every ounce of emotion into her voice. As her melody filled the air, Snoop paced nearby, his phone at his ear again, speaking with someone in rapid, hushed tones. Amanda couldn't catch the words, but his animated gestures hinted at something significant. Before long, the small crowd that had gathered earlier began to grow again. More people stopped to listen, drawn in by the raw beauty and emotion of Amanda's performance. Snoop seemed to notice too, his smile broadening as he observed the impact she was having. Finally, after finishing a powerful rendition of a soulful ballad, Amanda paused to catch her breath. Snoop approached, his face alight with excitement. "All right," he said. "I just got off the phone with a friend of mine in the industry, a producer. He's going to come down here and hear you for himself. And if he likes what he hears, we're getting you in a studio to record a single." Amanda's eyes widened. "A single? You mean like a real recording?" "Exactly," Snoop said, his tone brimming with confidence. "We'll put it on streaming platforms, promote it like crazy, and use the proceeds for Liam's treatment. Plus, it'll give you a chance to showcase your talent on a whole new level. What do you think?" Tears welled up in Amanda's eyes. I don't even know what to say. This is more than I could have ever dreamed of." Snoop placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You deserve it. And so does Liam. Now, let's make it happen." Amanda nodded, a newfound determination shining in her eyes. As she stepped back up to the microphone and began to sing once more, a sense of purpose surged through her. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time in a long time, Amanda felt like she wasn't fighting alone. Together, with her voice and the support of someone who believed in her, she was ready to take on the world for her son. The atmosphere around Amanda's makeshift stage became electric as twilight descended. The crowd now spilled onto the street, their faces illuminated by the glow of the stage lights. Her voice, raw with emotion and conviction, held everyone captive. As Amanda finished another powerful ballad, the audience erupted into applause, some shouting words of encouragement. Snoop stepped up beside her, holding the phone that had been streaming live. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his deep, resonant voice cutting through the cheers, "what we're doing here today is more than just listening to incredible music. We're standing together for something bigger, for Amanda and her son Liam." He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. "The online donations are pouring in. Let's keep it going." The crowd roared in response, and Amanda, overwhelmed, wiped away tears of gratitude. As the evening wore on, Snoop brought another surprise. He invited a few local artists to join the stage, turning the event into a collaborative celebration of music and community. They performed duets with Amanda, harmonizing beautifully and drawing even more attention to the cause. When Amanda sang her final song of the night, a soulful rendition of Hallelujah, the audience swayed in unison, holding their phones aloft like candles. The moment was magical, and even Amanda felt as though Liam's fight was bolstered by the collective love and support emanating from the crowd. When she stepped back from the microphone, the applause was deafening. Snoop walked up to her and handed her the phone, showing the livestream dashboard. Her eyes widened as she saw the total amount raised, $87,243. "I can't believe this," Amanda whispered, her voice cracking. "You better believe it," Snoop said, grinning. "And this is just the start. We're going to keep this momentum going. I've got a team ready to help you manage these funds and get Liam the care he needs. Plus, we're putting that single out. People need to hear your voice." Amanda clutched the phone to her chest, unable to hold back her tears any longer. "Thank you," she managed to say, looking at Snoop and then at the crowd. "Thank you all so much. You've given my son a chance." The crowd cheered louder, some shouting Liam's name in solidarity. Amanda looked toward the van, where Liam was still resting peacefully. For the first time in months, she felt a glimmer of hope, real, tangible hope. That night, as the streets emptied and the makeshift stage was packed up, Amanda held Liam close and whispered, "We're going to fight this, baby. And we're not alone anymore." Snoop, standing nearby, overheard her words and nodded to himself. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Amanda's heart fluttered with uncertainty. She'd never expected any of this. The crowd, the donations, and now this unexpected offer from Snoop. The idea of accepting such an offer seemed surreal, almost like a dream. But something in her told her this might be the next step in their journey, something she couldn't afford to turn down. I guess it would be okay," she said, her voice still thick with emotion. "Thank you again, Snoop, for everything." Snoop smiled, a reassuring and genuine smile, one that made Amanda feel like things might actually be turning around for them. He motioned for one of his security guards to approach, and the man nodded in understanding. "All right, Amanda. You and Liam get in. We'll take care of everything," Snoop said, guiding her towards his car. Amanda hesitated for a moment, glancing back at the makeshift stage that had been packed up and the crowd that was now dispersing. She felt a strange sense of pride and gratitude. In the span of just a few hours, everything had changed. As she carefully buckled Liam into the back seat of Snoop's luxurious Cadillac, she couldn't help but smile at the way the evening had unfolded. Liam, still tired from the excitement, curled up and soon fell asleep in her arms. Snoop climbed into the driver's seat, and the car rumbled to life. "We'll get there in no time," he said, offering Amanda a reassuring glance. The drive was quiet at first, the hum of the car's engine filling the silence between them. Amanda glanced over at Snoop, trying to process everything that had just happened. "I don't know how to thank you enough," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Today. It's like a miracle." Snoop glanced over at her and smiled softly. "You don't have to thank me. You've got the real talent here. I'm just helping you get the attention you deserve. People are gonna rally behind you, Amanda. Your story, your voice, it's gonna make a difference." Amanda nodded, but her mind raced. "I still can't believe this is happening. The donations, the live stream, it's like a dream. But it's just the beginning, right? There's so much more to do for Liam." Snoop's smile faded slightly, and he looked out at the road ahead. "We're just getting started. You've got a story to tell, and people need to hear it. But let's take things one step at a time. We'll focus on Liam first, and we'll keep the momentum going. Trust me." As the car sped through the streets, Amanda felt an unexpected sense of hope settling in her chest. It had been a long, lonely road, but tonight, for the first time in what felt like forever, she could see the possibility of a future where Liam could get the treatment he so desperately needed. Soon, they arrived at Amanda's van, and Snoop's security guard parked behind it. The Cadillac pulled up beside it, and Amanda stepped out, carefully holding Liam in her arms. Snoop looked at her, his expression warm. "All right," he said, "let's get you inside. Get some rest. Tomorrow's a new day." As they walked toward her front door, Amanda's heart was full. She had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like they had a chance. As they drove deeper into the neighborhood, Amanda couldn't help but notice the disparity between the luxury of Snoop's car and the harsh reality of the streets they passed. The faded buildings, the worn-down sidewalks, and the empty lots spoke volumes about the struggles that many of the residents faced daily. Yet, in the midst of it all, there was a sense of community, people walking the streets, some waving at Amanda as they recognized her. Despite the rough surroundings, Snoop seemed completely unfazed. His easygoing demeanor never wavered, and his presence in the neighborhood felt natural, like someone who belonged, who understood. "Here we are," Amanda said, her voice a bit quieter as she pointed to a modest apartment complex at the end of the block. "This is it." Snoop looked out the window at the building, taking in the worn exterior. "Looks like you've been through a lot here, huh?" Amanda nodded, her throat tightening. "It's not easy, but it's home. I do what I can to make sure Liam has everything he needs." Snoop parked the car near the entrance, and Amanda hesitated for a moment before opening the door. "This is where Liam and I have been living for the past few months. It's not much, but it's all we have." She grabbed Liam's car seat and carefully carried it out of the car, her hands trembling slightly. Snoop followed her, carrying the rest of their belongings, including a few bags she'd packed earlier. The apartment complex was quiet, and the air was thick with the smell of street food and car exhaust. As Amanda led the way up the worn steps, Snoop fell into step behind her. "Don't worry," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "I'm just happy to be here, helping out however I can." The door to her apartment creaked as Amanda opened it, revealing a small, cozy space. The walls were bare except for a few pictures of Liam scattered around, and the furniture was mismatched and worn. It wasn't much, but it was a place where she and Liam had found solace in their struggle. Amanda placed Liam's car seat down gently, then turned to Snoop. "This is where we live. I know it's not much, but I hope you'll make yourself comfortable." Snoop smiled, his eyes taking in the simple surroundings. "It's more than enough," he said, his voice warm. "I've seen much worse. This is real life. This is where the heart is." Amanda felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "Thank you. Truly. I didn't know what to expect when I met you today, but you've already done so much for us." Snoop nodded, setting down the bags he'd been carrying. "I'm just getting started," he said, glancing around. "You've got a lot of people rooting for you now. We're gonna make sure Liam gets the treatment he needs. This is just the beginning of a new chapter for you guys." As he spoke, Amanda realized just how much this unexpected turn of events had meant to her. For the first time in a long time, she could see the possibility of a better future for herself and Liam, a future filled with hope instead of the endless fight for survival. Snoop sat down on the couch, casually taking in the room. He seemed completely at ease in a space that was far from luxurious, his presence calming. "So," he said with a grin, "you've got the talent, you've got the heart, and you've got people who care. What's next for you?" Amanda thought for a moment, a sense of determination rising in her chest. "Next, we keep fighting for Liam. And maybe, just maybe, we start believing that things can get better." Snoop nodded approvingly. "Exactly. Keep your head up, Amanda. You've got a bright future ahead, and now, we're all in this together." As Amanda looked at Liam, peacefully sleeping in his car seat, she felt a flicker of hope for the first time in a long while. Things were changing. Slowly, but surely. With Snoop's help, and the support of everyone who now knew their story, maybe, just maybe, this could be the turning point they so desperately needed. "But what I see here is strength. You're doing everything you can for your son, and that's something to be proud of. This right here, might not be a mansion, but it's filled with love, and that's what matters most." Amanda's eyes welled up with tears as she listened to Snoop's words. She had never thought of her home in that way, always too focused on what it lacked to appreciate what it had. But now, hearing it from someone else, she realized he was right. Despite the peeling paint, the broken sink, and the worn furniture, her home was built on the foundation of love and hope. For Liam, she had done everything she could, and that was what truly mattered. Snoop stepped into the room, taking a moment to look around before turning back to Amanda. "You've created something special here, Amanda. Don't ever doubt that." She smiled faintly, feeling a rush of gratitude that she could barely put into words. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Snoop then glanced at Liam, who was now playing quietly in the corner with his toys, unaware of the adult conversation taking place. "He's a bright little guy," Snoop remarked, his voice softening as he watched the boy with admiration. Amanda followed Snoop's gaze, her heart swelling with love for her son. "He is." "He's a fighter," she said quietly, a tender smile on her lips. Snoop nodded, clearly moved by the bond between mother and son. "I see that. And I see your fight too. You're not just surviving. You're doing everything in your power to make sure he has a chance. That's the kind of strength that moves mountains." The words were a balm to Amanda's soul, soothing the exhaustion and worry that had been her constant companions. She had always known that she was doing her best, but hearing it from someone who had seen so much in his life, someone who had built his own empire against all odds, made her believe in herself just a little bit more. After a moment of silence, Snoop turned his attention back to Amanda. "Now, about the treatment. I want to help make sure Liam gets what he needs. Let's talk more about how we can make that happen." Amanda swallowed the lump in her throat, overwhelmed by the kindness that Snoop was showing. "I don't even know where to start," she admitted, her voice shaking slightly. "I've been doing everything I can to raise money, but it's just never enough. The bills keep piling up." Snoop gave her a reassuring look. "We'll figure it out," he said with certainty. "But first, let's focus on making sure Liam gets the right treatment. We're gonna get him the care he deserves, Amanda. Don't worry about a thing." Tears welled up in Amanda's eyes again, but this time they were tears of relief. For the first time in months, maybe even years, she felt like there was a chance, an actual chance, that Liam would get the treatment he needed. And it wasn't just her fighting alone anymore. She wasn't carrying the weight on her shoulders by herself. Snoop gave her a gentle smile, his eyes filled with understanding. "We've got your back. All of us. You don't have to do this alone anymore." As Amanda stood there, holding her son in her arms, she felt a sense of peace that had eluded her for so long. With Snoop's help, with the support of the people who now cared about her and Liam, she could see a path forward, a way out of the darkness that had hung over their lives for so long. "Thank you," she whispered again, her voice barely audible, but filled with all the gratitude she had in her heart. Snoop smiled warmly, a hint of pride in his expression. "You're welcome, Amanda. Now, let's make this happen. Together." "I understand how overwhelming this must be," Snoop said, his tone calming and reassuring. "But sometimes life gives us an opportunity, and it's up to us to take it. I'm not offering this to make you feel indebted or obligated. I'm offering it because I believe in you and Liam. I've seen enough in my life to know that when someone has the kind of strength and love you have, they deserve every chance to succeed. And Liam, well, he deserves a fighting chance." Amanda's breath caught in her throat as she looked down at Liam, his little hands clutching her, his wide eyes looking up at her for reassurance. She had always known that she would do anything for him, but the thought of accepting such an extraordinary offer was both humbling and terrifying. What did it mean for their future? Was she ready to accept help on this scale? Snoop, sensing her hesitation, continued, "You're not alone in this, Amanda. You've already shown more courage than most people I know. I want to help make sure you both get the chance you deserve, and I know you're ready to take that step." Amanda slowly looked back up at him, her heart full of emotion. The weight of everything, the years of struggle, the endless nights wondering how she would make it, the fear that she wouldn't be able to give Liam the care he needed, seemed to lighten just a little. This was her chance, and it wasn't just a fleeting dream. It was real. "You really believe in me?" Amanda asked, her voice quivering. Snoop's smile was warm and reassuring. "I do. You have a gift, Amanda. And what you're doing for Liam, it shows the kind of person you are. People like you deserve to be supported, not just with money, but with the resources and opportunities that can change everything." Amanda felt tears streaming down her face, but they weren't tears of sorrow this time. They were tears of relief, of hope, of realizing that maybe, just maybe, her life could change. That her son's life could change. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered, still holding Liam close. "You don't need to," Snoop replied. "Just take the opportunity, and I'll be here to help you through it. We'll make sure Liam gets the treatment he needs. And as for you, We'll make sure the world hears your voice." Amanda nodded, wiping away the tears that fell freely now. She couldn't find the words, but she knew that this was a moment she would never forget. A moment when everything she'd been fighting for suddenly felt possible. Snoop stepped forward, offering his hand. "Let's make this happen. Together." Amanda hesitated for only a second before placing her hand in his. It felt like the start of something bigger than she could have imagined. The road ahead might be uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she wasn't facing it alone. With that, Snoop gently ruffled Liam's hair and smiled warmly at Amanda. "Let's take the next step. You've got a future ahead of you, and so does Liam, and we're gonna make sure it's a bright one." As Amanda stood there, looking at her son, her heart full of gratitude and hope, she knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter. One filled with possibilities, not just for her, but for Liam, too. She wasn't sure how everything would unfold, but she was no longer afraid. With Snoop's support and her own determination, she finally felt like they had a chance to overcome the odds. As they drove through the streets, the familiar hum of Amanda's old van seemed almost out of place with Snoop's presence beside her. The worn upholstery, the rattling engine, and the cracked dashboard were all reminders of how far she and Liam had come, but also of how much further they had to go. Snoop, however, seemed completely at ease. He leaned back in his seat, his demeanor relaxed and calm. His attention was on Amanda, occasionally glancing at Liam through the rearview mirror, but mostly he just let her drive. "How's Liam holding up?" Snoop asked after a while, breaking the silence. Amanda smiled softly as she looked back at her son, who was clutching his toy tightly in his small hands, his eyes already starting to droop. "He's good. Just tired," she replied, her voice filled with warmth as she looked at him. "I'm sure he's been through a lot," Snoop said, his tone gentle. "It's amazing how strong both of you are." Amanda's heart swelled at the kind words. It wasn't often that she heard compliments like that. Most people saw her as just another struggling mother. But Snoop had seen beyond the surface. He understood the battle, the daily grind of trying to keep it all together while facing challenges that seemed insurmountable. "Thank you," Amanda said quietly, her voice a little shaky with emotion. "I've just been trying to keep it together for him. He's my everything." Snoop nodded in understanding. "I get that, and I admire it. That's why we're doing this, right? To make sure he gets the chance he deserves." Amanda could barely respond, her throat tightening as she tried to hold back tears. She couldn't remember the last time someone had believed in her, let alone offered help in such a genuine, meaningful way. The drive was short, and soon they pulled up in front of a medical center, its sign lit brightly in the early evening. The contrast between the sterile, polished building and the beat-up van was stark, but Amanda felt a flicker of hope deep within her. As she parked the van, she turned to Snoop. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Snoop smiled, the warmth in his eyes unmistakable. "You don't have to thank me. This is just the beginning. We've got this." Amanda took a deep breath, nodding as she opened the door and helped Liam out of his car seat. Snoop followed her to the entrance, his presence a comforting weight beside her. She wasn't alone anymore. As they walked toward the doors of the medical center, Amanda felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. With Snoop's help, she was one step closer to giving Liam the chance he deserved. And for the first time in a long while, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. As they entered the hospital, the sterile, bright atmosphere contrasted sharply with the uncertainty that had filled Amanda's life for so long. Every step they took toward the emergency department felt like stepping into the unknown, yet for the first time in what seemed like forever, Amanda didn't feel entirely alone. Snoop was right beside her, a steady presence. His calm demeanor offered her comfort, a grounding force as they navigated through the hospital halls. Liam, oblivious to the whirlwind of change, looked up at the hospital surroundings with wide, curious eyes. "Don't worry, Amanda," Snoop said quietly, offering a reassuring smile. "We're doing this together, every step of the way." Amanda nodded, her heart still racing, but there was a flicker of hope now, burning bright in her chest. This wasn't just a chance for Liam, it was a chance for her too. Snoop had seen something in her, believed in her abilities, and in doing so, had opened a door she hadn't dared to dream could be possible. As they reached the reception desk, Amanda was greeted by a nurse who led them to the waiting area, where Dr. Carter's team was already preparing for Liam's pre-surgery assessments. Amanda felt a swell of gratitude for the doctors who had supported her from the very beginning, and now, with this newfound hope, the possibility of seeing Liam's recovery through had never felt so real. Dr. Carter came to meet them shortly after, her face lighting up when she saw them. "Amanda, Liam, it's so wonderful to see you both here, ready to move forward," she said warmly. Amanda couldn't hold back a smile as she looked at Snoop. He had made this possible. "We're ready," Amanda said, her voice filled with a quiet strength. "Ready to give Liam the chance he deserves." The doctor smiled, giving a nod of approval. "Let's get started then. We've got work to do." As the medical team prepared for the treatment, Snoop quietly excused himself to give Amanda some space, but before he left, he placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'll be here, you're not alone in this," he said, and Amanda found herself nodding, grateful beyond words. As Snoop walked away, Amanda watched him, still amazed by how quickly everything had changed. Just hours ago, she was overwhelmed with the uncertainty of Liam's future, and now she was standing on the brink of a new beginning. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Snoop. "Don't forget, this is just the beginning. We've got big plans ahead, ." Amanda smiled softly, the tears that had threatened to fall earlier finally making their way down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of hope. For the first time in what felt like forever, the future seemed bright, and Amanda knew she was ready to face whatever came next, because she no longer had to do it alone.